Here's the game. Life's like a GPS in your car. Alright? You don't say, you don't say, oh, I want to go downtown. GPS, right? No. Where are you going to go? Nowhere, right? Like it's going to sit in the car and it's going to spin around and it's going to go, but where do you want to go downtown? Right? So think about that. When we're talking to the universe, we got to have some clarity. And if your don't like and your don't want and your can't do list is where you're playing, that's what you're going to get. Right? So it takes clarity to say, I want to go to Tellers, right? Or I want a Jeep, or I need, you know what I'm saying? Get some clarity there. I want a job that has sustenance, that's going to save me or sustain me, plus fulfill me, right? Say, I want a man that is going to blah, 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 your things. You don't just want a man, you want the right man. But you have to know what that's going to look like. Otherwise, you're going to keep just getting men that don't fit that, right? And it takes clarity. It takes sitting down with your thoughts in that meditative space and looking at them, right? It takes really looking at them. Because what's roaming around in your head is what you're living. That's what you're living. Our brain takes in 100 billion bits of information per second. The average brain is capable of opening 40 of those bits. So it stands to reason that we're going to fall into a pattern and open the same ones. So until we understand which, I always like to think of it in terms of like emails, right? So if you get 100 billion emails every day, you're going to have a pattern with which you're going to open the 40 that you have time to open, right? It's just like our spams on our thing. We start filtering out, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, right? So then we start living in this rut. Now, I like to think about an electrical cord, right? It's got all these strands that are all like interwoven, right? To come up and fulfill this circuit. What happens to us in our lifetime is, say, we hit a road bump and we have a splinter there, right? We hit another road bump and maybe we have a splinter here, right? Say a trauma, something happens in your life, boom. A death, right? Depending on how we walk through that, right? Boom, boom. So by the time we get to this adulthood, we've got all this frayed cord. So sometimes it's hitting that circuit and sometimes it's not. Right? I like to think of this look as, that famous phrase, fitting through the eye of a needle. Think about that. Think what it's like to thread a frayed piece of thread. You end up having to cut the end off.
Very awesome analogy.
Right? And you end up having to cut that end off. Just like with this, you'd come down here and cut until you had a piece, right? Because you can't get it to fit once it gets frayed. So through this process, what we're actually doing is we're learning how to sit still. We're learning how to observe what's going on in here, because this is what we're living. When we actually put a thought and a word and an action together, you will see it happen. So then if we put that thought and word and kind of willy-nilly action, you get pieces of it. That's what our life is about. That's why it's so chaotic, right? Because there's not a strategy. We don't understand what we're actually creating. So I like to think about this process as like, so how old were you here? Maybe 10? Here you maybe 12. Here maybe, 17. here maybe 30. Right? So through this timeline, you know, to an extreme, this is what they call multiple personalities, right? To an extreme. But we all have periods where we show up like this. And that's how we react to a situation. And you're caught back in that loop of behavior, right? Because that's where that program stops for dealing with whatever scenario that was, right? Same here, right? And then you're going to show up like a 12-year-old. That's why you look at people and you're like, they're throwing a temper tantrum, like, you can almost see their age, right? You're like, you are 15 right now, the way you're behaving with me. Well, we all do that, you know? That's why we have these little weird blow-ups, because we're, you know, we're still showing up. So I like to think about this process of going back and taking that 10-year-old's hand. Because many of us, then some of these strands have gone straight through, right? Or some of them had to go way up here, you know, way up here, way before it was time. You know, so then we show up in adulthood with some of us, you know, parts of us being to this extreme and parts of us being way down here, right? And that's why we feel so unstable. Well, just think if you feel like this on the inside, everybody else is feeling that off of you too. And then they don't know who's going to show up. How are you going to react? Who is that right now?
Exactly.
Right? And that's our responsibility, especially when we start realizing that. And through this process where you throw that observer up there, the observer is that place inside where ego's out of the way, the story's out of the way, and you can watch from that place as if you were watching a movie. You know how when you're watching a movie, you're like, everybody has their part and they're playing it full tilt, right? Like, and you have a glimpse at what has gone on prior to have them react in that space, right? So recapitulation is one of my absolute favorite. It has probably been the single most powerful tool as far as changing behavior in my life. Because it's how you show up. You know, if something really bad happened here at 10, every time you show up, you're showing up at 10. Well, you've got a door open that's just attracting this because they never got resolved. You know? So oftentimes we, you know, on campus, all these date rapes and, you know, what have you. I really have not encountered a woman that, you know, hadn't been crossed way down here, if that's happening right now. It's just like, you know, different relationship patterns, different, you know, that's all because we've left doors open. Right? And as women, that's a powerful thing when you think about it. Like, you're like, okay, well, you know, every time there's a door open, you've got energy leaking out too. Right? And you know, a predator never picks the strongest person in the room. Ever. Ever. Right? They're going to pick the person that's feeling uncomfortable, that's probably, you know. So when I talk about showing up, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, you know, if you're showing up in that energy, it's like, go fix it. Go grab that little child's hand. And that's a choice. Just turn around through this process. And
Because I always refer to it as little parent.
yes.
Always.
Exactly. Exactly. Because, you know, until you know the full story, no one else can know it. It's on your mind, I feel something.
I'm just listening.
And you know, when we're like doing this, like, you know, this little exercise, I think that gives you a glimpse of where you're living, right? If you're like living in your pile of don'ts, I mean, most of us can reiterate that like that, right? We can tell everybody every bad thing's happening in our life. We can tell them, but if you sit down with someone and you say, but what good is happening? What is that? What is that part of your life that is working? Because that's where you want to capitalize. You want to say, this is really working. Okay. You know, let me look and see why. How am I showing up differently here? Is it because I'm in my passion? You know? I'm in alignment? You know, because that's another piece of this too, is, you know, a thread that is frayed, there's no integrity there. There's no real central integrity, right? If you were looking at a fabric that was being created out of all this fray, you'd be afraid to wear it. It's liable to just disintegrate, right? You know, that's Gandhi's happiness, when what you think, what you say, and what you do are the same. And I like to add, no matter who's in the room. You know, because we have a tendency to be very strong and feel in our integrity when we've got people that kind of feel below us, right? And most of the time when we're upset about something, now, you know, it's definitely about, very often, if you back out enough, what you're really upset about is the way you showed up. Most often, it's about how you reacted that has you upset. Because, you know, quantum physics says every scenario for every moment is happening at the same time. So that means every moment you're choosing where to look, right? Now, it very much does take mind training. It takes that being a thought. And one of the first things that was really powerful for me is to really start paying attention and declaring to everyone around me what I saw happening differently, right? If I had somebody walk into my bubble that said just the right thing I needed to hear, I would declare that to another person. That's Jesus is two or more. Again, that energy of like saying it again and creating that train, right? It also gives you that space puts you in that space of receptiveness because you're not doubting that that was real. Because what ends up happening is we start explaining God away. We explain God away 24/7, right? You have a miracle, that was a coincidence. You have this, constantly we're explaining him away. Well, let me tell you, nature talks 24/7. And it's all here for us. It's all here for us to help us move forward on this journey. And it will interact with you. Absolutely. The more you think it's going to interact with you, the more it will interact with you. The animals, for sure. I mean, because just think about it. You know, you think about, okay, that tree came to this planet not ever having to move. I mean, just think about us. Could we, I mean, we have trouble sitting still, right? Could we be in a space where we couldn't move? Would we be in a space where, you know, our only purpose is to give? Think about that. Hello. Hi, come on up.
My mom is not coming. Did she talk to you?
No, but that's fine. I hear
Yeah, I
she
met
has
her.
some other things to do, so that's perfect.
Yeah. I'm sitting this one tonight. This is Bailey.
Hi,
my best
Bailey. Good to
friend.
meet you. So we've been kind of talking about choices a little bit, and we had people create a do want list and a don't want list.
Oh yeah, talked about that last time.
And talked a little bit about the GPS. Have to pop in and listen to some of what you missed. Okay, where was I? Anybody remember what I was talking about? Oh, nature interacting.
And the animals.
Yeah, I mean, because it's all here for us to advance us, right? So they're all here so that you can breathe. You know, the animals, you know, if an animal starts really, you know, I mean, I am outside a lot, but, you know, if I am 2 or 3 days in a row seeing hummingbirds, like, hanging out with me, I'm going to do some research on the hummingbird. I'm going to say, what are you telling me? What sort of pattern is showing up in my life right now that I should be aware of? Because that's the cool thing. It's all playing with you. And as soon as you start playing with it, life starts happening. And truly, you know, when we're living in this place where we're explaining away every miracle, every magic thing that happens, I mean, When you go downtown and you're like in a hurry and that parking spot's open right in front of the place you need to go, thank you. Because you did that. That's what you need to understand. Every time you pick up your cell phone right before it rings, what do you think that is? That's being in sync, right? That's feeling that connection. So playing with this idea and the GPS is really powerful. You know, when you think, okay, as long as I'm in the parking lot, I can have as much clarity around where I want to go as possible. But are you moving? You know, she doesn't start talking until we're moving, right? So, you know, most of us get stuck here in life because we're afraid of making a wrong turn, where no turn is sometimes the biggest choice you can make, right? Just sitting in the pond. You're just sitting there, swimming around in circles, right? You get out of the pond, you make a choice, right? You go this way, what does the GPS do? It says, reroute. You will get pushed back on. As long as you just start walking, you know, and have that intention of that's where I'm going. You'll find your way. You know? So I'll start telling you straight up, especially if you're listening. You know, and in the beginning, it's very, like I said, you've got 40 bits. So through this whole thing, the whole process is upgrading your brain, right? So just like your computer, if you're working on software that's from 1998, you're not going to accomplish much in this day and time, right? So it's definitely going in and cleaning out your computer and picking up some new downloads and deciding where you're going to start looking. Being very aware of what you're letting into your field. What TV are you watching? What music are you watching? Up-level it. Up-level it. See what happens. You know, but the cool thing is start keeping a journal and so that you can start noticing the shifts. Right? So that you can see them. Because what ends up happening often, it's like if you go to the doctor and you say, oh, wow, my arm hurts. And he could just like wave a magic wand and your arm be perfectly well, but you're going to go out and you're going to go, well, it does kind of hurt if I do that. It does kind of hurt. You know, by the time you get home, you're going to have built that pain all back. Right? Because you're hunting for it. It's comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, it's comfortable. So it's almost like you're hunting for it, because what are you getting out of that pain? What sort of interactions are you having with people? What sort of things is coming from you hanging on to that, right? So anything that you're bumping up against in your life, just kind of look at it and say, what am I gaining, really, from staying here? Because you always have a choice to not. And this is, you know, the process ends up being a lot of fun, but change, good, bad, or indifferent, is uncomfortable. Just like choices, often, right? Because we don't make the choices because we're afraid of the change more often than not, right? But then you have to weigh out, what's worse? What could be worse? Me staying where I am in the same place, swimming in the same circle for the next 20 years? Right? Is that what we want to do? Just swim in the circle. Because what ends up being in that pond? Just your junk. Yeah.
I went on a pond.
Yeah. It's fun out here. It's for sure fun out here. Lots of laughing. Really, like upgrade what's in your environment, for sure. First thing, you know. What TV you're watching, laughter is contagious. And healing happens on every side of it. You know? It's almost like if you put this in the center, that's going to radiate out, and everything that it can reach is going to shift. One laugh. You watch, you're in a tough situation. If you can make that person laugh, boom, over. Right? 9 times out of 10, You know, again, that goes back to us. How are we showing up? Are we showing up ready for a fight? Yeah. Okay. Is everybody ready for a meditation? Do you have a focus in mind? No? Pick one of those wants. Pick one of those wants and just throw it up there. Just have it very clear in your mind. Just very clear in your mind. And don't worry about what it's going to take to get there. Just have it be very clear in your mind. Say for you, where you want to go to school, whatever. Like, you've got your life in front of you. Be very clear. You're not